Well, we are live. Colton, I'm going to ask you, can you mute your microphone when you're not talking? Because I'm getting some feedback in the background. We are live. Welcome in. I'll wait a couple seconds to get started here, just in case some people want to stream in. Stream in works. We're going to be doing Genesis 3, some grammar, some syntax, and some word order. And there are a couple theological tidbits that we can hit on too a little bit. Okay, 8 people coming in. Welcome in, everybody. Be sure to say hi in the comments. Let us know that you're here. That would be great. We are doing a bonus stream because Jason couldn't be here with us today. Because he has overcommitted himself to do many things at the same time. So we're going to do some reading. Can everybody see the screen okay, the window, or do we need to hide the pictures? Hello, Muriel. What do you think, Colton? Should we hide the pictures? Make it full screen?
Yeah, go ahead. Just,
okay.
Just so they can see better. It'll probably be the best idea.
It didn't make it full screen. So I guess.
Can you zoom in? Can you zoom in at the bottom there? In the bottom right?
Did that do anything?
On the Word document, you see at the bottom right there, you can.
Yeah. I have it at 122. Does it need to be bigger, you think?
I mean, at that point, it doesn't matter. Just I can see it fine. So as long as everyone else can see it, I reckon that's all that matters.
Yeah. Slapshot can see it. Hello, Slapshot. I think I know who you are. So that's good. All right, well, let's get started. There's something to talk about right off the bat when it comes to word order. Well, let's see. Let me do something real quick here. Is it sharing this blank window now? This blank document? Can you see the blank document? You cannot.
No, sorry, forgot I was muted.
Yeah, that happens.
No, it's just showing the one you have the text on.
Yeah. Where is the doggone present button? I just did it and I can't see. Here. Looks like we need to stop sharing and then start sharing again. One second. This is kind of stupid. It makes you open up the window in order to share it.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
Okay. Oh, gosh darn it. Okay, here we go. There we go.
There you go.
Now I need to. Yeah, we'll get there eventually. I just wanted to do a quick little thing, a very quick little thing, so you see where I'm coming from. So we've got. Let's briefly talk about the traditional view of word order. So let's see. I'll just make up a sentence. Mm, it's I think it's this. Ha'echal, I think it's that. So I just made up a sentence. Halach hamelech ha'hekal, el ha'hekal. So the traditional view of Hebrew word order through since its inception until there was one person, I can't remember who, but suggested that Hebrew was in fact subject verb object instead of verb subject object. So instead of halach hamelech el ha'hechal as standard word order, Jason and I and we pattern ourselves off of two professors, John Cook and Rob. They argue based on what's going on in medieval German that, among other things, I need to review their argument as far as where they get it from, but medieval German, among other language mechanics, that unmarked Hebrew word order is subject verb or subject verb object. So unmarked Hebrew word order would just be just like it is in English. Hamelech, halach. I should have done this before.
That's fine. Do you think it might be pertinent to just people talk about what we mean when we say marked and unmarked too?
Marked and unmarked is unmarked word order is just standard word order, which in our case is subject verb object, in our opinion. This is still very much the minority view. Marked word order is answering the question, if this is the case, then why is it so common that Hebrew exhibits subject verb or verb subject object? So even though this is the standard word order, meaning there's nothing that's influencing it, this is the most common construction, verb subject object. So the question is why? Well, there are numerous reasons. There are like 4 different situations that change the word order. The first one is grammatical words, like that come at the front of clauses, like ki, asher. What's another one? Some sort of prepositional phrase, and we'll see that. Ki, asher. Participles do not cause inversion. So participles will be standard. Ki, asher. Negatives like all or low. Oops, sorry. All or, gosh darn it, or low. And also the big one is the man, I can't type today. The vav consecutive. And because you have all of these word order things, all of these grammatical words at the front of clauses and the vav consecutive, this is going to cause inversion. So instead, let's say we have hamelech. Did that go back down? No, that's fine. Hamelech halach el ha'hechal. Let's make it past tense then. Make it past tense then. It would be vayelech. Vayelech hamelech. Right? Okay. Or if you have the grammatical word at the front of the clause. Ki halach hamelech. Okay. What's the and the other one, the final one actually is topicalization and focus, or as it's traditionally called, emphasis, right? And we're going to see um, examples of that, of all of these in Genesis chapter 3. So we'll see if there are any questions on that. That's like a very quick crash course on word order. Comments? No comments? Colton, any comments? That was very quick.
Yeah, one of those things that a lot of times people argue because it's so frequent. You know, they'll argue from frequency that that it
Right.
is verb object. You know, the real thing is that the best metric when we have to consider the fact that the the text is a text. It's it is a written down form that has some that has certain genres and typical ways of doing. It's majority narrative, so you get a narrative. You get this narrative genre throughout the whole thing, and so that's why we call them the. Sometimes they're called the narrative per. So part of what the I think is most important is like really questioning that why it is that is the most frequent thing, in the fact that it's might be the genre of written text.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I've not actually Homestead or Cook, I know that just linguistic, when you compare direct speech to everything, the direct speech will actually show that it is subject, unless it has one of those um, unless it has one of those features to it. Mhm. It looks like Blackshot's question has a
Right.
question.
Slapshot. Since, by your estimation, there are a lot more occurrences of verb subject object, perhaps that might be considered unmarked. Unless you view unmarked word order as emphatic or non-emphatic, is that what you're saying? I talk about unmarked as anything that causes word order to flip. That would be marked. The standard word order, which admittedly we don't see very often in the Hebrew Bible, would be unmarked. And Sailhammer would say subject verb object usually indicates background information. And yes, that is, we're going to get into that immediately in Genesis chapter 3. Is Genesis 3:1 marked or unmarked? Is it really topicalization? Right? That's one of the questions we're going to look at. But in this case, Sailhammer would hold the traditional verb subject object version, and that the word order is inverted to. I'm sorry, Sailhammer would do verb subject object. Did I say subject verb object? Sailhammer does verb subject object, and then in his mind, when something is emphatic, it flips to the emphatic view would flip the subject and the verb. Cook and Homestead say that emphasis does flip word order, but they operate from the other way around. And the end result is usually such syntactical analysis does not affect translation, right? So either way, whichever way you prefer to view word order, you're still going to come out with the same translation, right? So does that make sense to everybody? Is that a suitable answer for your question? But we'll see examples right now of all of these things. So let me share the screen. I keep forgetting where the present button is. Dang it. Where is, oh, there we go. That's the full screen view. Oh, present's at the bottom. Remind me. Present, share screen. And here's the Hebrew. Did that not work? Let's see. It wouldn't let me click on it. Oh, I have to add it to stage. I'm still getting used to this, folks. Sorry. Can you see it okay? Everyone, can everyone see it? All right, cool. So let me open up the file and we'll go through it. Colton, would you like to start with
That's
verse
fine.
1?
Yeah.
Or you could do, yeah, just do 1.
Okay. והנחש היה ערום מכל חיית השדה, אשר עשה אדוני אלוהים אל האישה אף כי אמר אלוהים, לא תאכלו מכל עץ הגן.
So what do you notice that would be interesting in regards to grammar or word order in 3:1?
Well, Muriel said the text is pretty small.
Oh, we can make it bigger. Oof. All right.
There we go. Hey,
okay, cool.
That'll work.
You're going to have to, since I'm looking at a full screen, can you keep me informed about comments?
Yeah, I got you.
Cool.
So the first thing is that it starts with the snake, with the snake, the Hanahash. And then it has the copula verb. And instead of the vegetal, or I guess consecutive was what they would use instead.
Where? In the first verse? The first word? Oh, that's just a conjunctive vav.
Yeah, they have just the conjunction separated from the haya instead of the.
Yes. So subject, verb, object. So what would the traditionalists say about this verse?
That this is.
Yeah. What are the criteria for, or Cook and Homestead call it focus?
Yeah. I don't know. The things that I think of typically are things that are going to be out of order. Can you hear me?
Muriel said she lost audio, or Slapshot. Sorry. Do you hear it now? Can you hear me talking? Bum-ba-dum. Check, 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 check. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Maybe he. Oh, yeah. Now you can. Okay, so it's you cutting out again, Colton, and I think it's your internet connection. So I don't think there's much you can do about it unless you want to restart or unplug, but you don't have to. So yes. So topicalization. What do the people say? What constitutes topicalization? It's whenever the text wants to focus on a particular subject, right? So they would say something like, now the serpent. And they're switching from talking about the, the in Genesis verse 20, it says, Vayikra Adam Shem Ishto Chava, Ki hi hayata aim kol chai, Vaya'as Adonai Elohim la'adam u'le'ishto uh, uh, kot not or. So God makes skin coats for the two people. And then it switches from talking about them into oh wait, I was reading the wrong verse. I'm sorry. Let's try that again, shall we? The last verse of 25 is Vayehu shnehem arumim ha'adam ve'ishto v'lo yitbo shashu. Right?
We can't see what you're reading.
Yeah. Well, no, because it's not there. It's
Okay.
not there. But it says they knew, or they were, the two of them, naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Right? You remember that from Genesis? And then it shifts from the two people to V'hanachash, which it seems to be, that seems like it could be a topical switch. I'm sorry about this. Okay. It seems like there's a topical switch, that it's going from the man and the woman to talking about the serpent. The only problem with that is, at least according to Homestead, in order for it to be a topicalization, the topic has to be priorly introduced. Right? Does that make sense? We'll see if we can find an example of topicalization. But he basically says you can't just mention the subject out of nowhere. It would have to have introduced the serpent and say something like, V'hanachashaya arum, the serpent was crafty, and then say something like, V'adam lo arum. But the man, as for the man, he was not crafty. So that would be an example of introducing the topic of the man, right? Because it's already been introduced. Yeah, change of subject. Well, change of subject, depending on how you look at it. I mean, you could just as easily say, well, in verse 25, it's talking about the man and the woman, and in verse 3:1, it's talking about the snake. So it just depends on how you look at topicalization. In Homestead's mind, in order for topicalization to happen, or emphasis on a person or an object or some kind of a noun, it has to have been priorly introduced in the narrative. It can't just, appear out of nowhere and start a new topic. So if we accept that view, what we have here is unmarked word order. The serpent was crafty, right? Subject, verb, object. I need to start marking on my page, don't I? Right. So keep me abreast on the comments while I have this open.
Yeah, you're good.
So we have subject, verb, object. Clear. Mikol chayat hasadeh asher asa Adonai Elohim. What about word order in that second clause? Colton, what do you think about that?
Well, let's see. Because, and what the field, that clause, which the Lord God made. Okay, so it's starting with one of those temporal markers. Or,
relative pronouns.
Yeah, thank you. That's the thing. But it's starting with something, and so verb, and then subject again.
Right. So since you have this relative pronoun, which classifies as a grammatical word, you have word order flipping. Asa Adonai Elohim. Right? Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Yes, relative clause, the layman seminary. I'm interested in your name there. I might check you out. Or the layman seminary. I'm not checking anybody out today. I'll go to a bar to do that. Yeah, so because there's a relative clause there, that's exactly right too. Words that indicate relative clauses are grammatical words like ki, asher, and the negatives sometimes. There is one verse that I know of in Genesis that throws a wrench in their analysis, and I think we'll cover that after we do a few more verses. I don't know if I'll probably skip around here. But yeah, any comments on that so far? This is a crash course in word order. So yeah, I guess let's continue with. You did the second line too. So what about this line? And I'll take the next two verses. How about that? You can have a rest because the second verse is really short.
No, that's fine. I'm just worried about cutting in and out again. Okay, so we start with so it's another one of those things that's going to mark the verb to push it to the head.
They also refer to the vav consecutive or the vayik tol as the past narrative form.
Okay.
So when I teach Hebrew, that's what I refer to it as, because 99% of the time it does indicate past tense.
Yeah, we will just do form. The vayik tol. Just use it by the form.
Yep.
But
Yep.
It's just whatever came to my mind first.
Yep. I wasn't correcting you. I was just offering their additional information.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So we have a key phrase as well.
Yes. So.
And so
flips.
Again, yeah. So flips, and then we have a negative phrase, the lo tochlu.
But we have an implied subject here, so we can't really see if it flips or not. But yes, they would say if there was a subject here that was stated, it would be flipped.
And then more than all the trees of the garden. And so another comparative phrase there.
And what's this? What I'm trying to highlight. Why is that doubled?
Why is that? Oh, because of the noon assimilating.
Yeah, very
from
good.
the men.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if I have any questions.
Yeah.
About anything. And
I think this is also a word that could flip it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we already have this here, so.
Right. And and so I looked that up because that's one of those things that we don't. The off key together is like did God really say? It's like it's a weird construction that happens, and so I looked it up in Halot, and they were like, yeah, it can basically you can do a couple of different things, but one of them is the implication of a question. So not that this is what I'm telling anyone to do. What I do is I just lump those together as like a single unit, like as an idiom almost, because it's doing something specific. So.
And you would view it as a single unit, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because
you have this disjunctive accent here, which is ending that clause. So af ki amar would be one unit. Actually, you want to include the subject, right? Very good.
Yes, and the layman seminary says it's the men of comparison. Yes,
it is the comparative men.
Yep.
Well, no, it's not. It's the partitive men. You shall not eat from any tree. One tree out of these you cannot eat, so it's the partitive men. Are you familiar with that construction, that terminology, rather?
Yeah, I am, and yeah, we got confirmation from Layman Seminary. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do the next two. Vatomer haishael hanachash mipri, another partitive men, mipri etz hagan nochel. Mipri ha'etz asher batoch hagan amar Elohim lo tochlu mimenu v'lo tig'u bo pen tamutun. So remarks about these two verses. First, we have Vatomer Haisha, and it's Vav consecutive or Vayik Tol or past narrative, whatever you want to call that. All three are fine. I'm not a stickler for that terminology. So verb subject because of the Vayik Tol form. I guess I'll call it Vayik Tol because that's what everybody calls it. That's pretty much the standard name now. So Mipri Eitz Hagan, another partitive men, Eitz Hagan, a construct phrase, the tree of the garden. And remember, in construct phrases, if the second noun is definite, so is the first. Nochel. And I would take this as what Cook and Homestead call an irreal imperfect. Traditionally, some people call it a modal imperfect. I'm trying to think if there's another name for it. I think those are I think modal imperfect is it's called that just to distinguish it from the traditional future tense terminology.
How would you translate it?
From the tree, she said to the snake, from the tree of the fruit of the garden we may eat. Right?
Okay.
We may eat, not necessarily we will eat.
Yeah,
but
so
we may eat.
You looking for the cohortative? Is that the word you were looking for?
It
doesn't have the cohortative hey. That's why
it doesn't have the cohortative hey. I don't think it's a cohortative because any person can do this with the imperfect. Any form of the imperfect can be mobile.
Because it's the cohortative is let us. It's a
right.
It's a command adjacent. Right.
Yeah, you could do let us eat, which would be cohortative, but a cohortative would also classify as a modal or an irreal.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get clarification on, that they are different things. But yeah.
Well, but the cohortative doesn't always have the hey on the end, does it? So I think you could.
It doesn't have to, right?
Yeah, you could call this a first-person plural cohortative. But I think you're right. I think it would be let us eat or may we eat instead of we may eat. So
how do I highlight a comment?
You just click on the comment. It's a nifalt. No, it's a first common plural call. It's a first permissive passive. It's not passive. Passive would be like we may be eaten, which is not what's going on. Yeah. So you could call that a modal imperfect, akin to the English subjunctive mood. A subjunctive is like a catch-all for a bunch of different stuff, right? Conditionals, permission, volatives. That's the word I was looking for. Volatives, and that might be the word you were looking for too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. I'm rusty. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not logged in to StreamYard, so I don't think it's going to let me.
Oh yeah, that's right. Just keep reading.
I will.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I will. But I was trying to figure out why won't it let me. But okay.
Yeah. You have to be. If you click on the comment, it doesn't.
No, it won't.
Doesn't say it won't let you click on the comment.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Yeah, you probably have to be logged into StreamYard.
Yeah, I'll let you. I'll just let you know when to look at it.
Cool. All right. Pentamutun, what is this? A paragogic noon,
We love to see them.
right? So what is this? No one really knows, but I think the best explanation I've heard that I haven't heard anybody say anything against is that this is a marker of elevated speech, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense, but there is no official consensus on its function. The other thing, this is another grammatical word, lest.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was a subject here, it would flip. Anything else? Oh, here we go again, right? Another way is a prepositional phrase causes it to flip. So, in case you haven't noticed, many, many, many things cause stuff to flip around, right? But I tell you what, Rob Homestead wrote his dissertation on every single relative clause in the Hebrew Bible, right? Every single relative clause in the narrative literature. And he found that something like 98% of the time, all his criteria fit for flipping words. So I think, and there are a bunch of people in the biblical scholar community that say, no, this is wrong. But guess what? They can't give a reason why. Right? He's given reason why he thinks what he thinks, but they haven't given any reasons to counter that. If Homestead is right, we're bucking what? 800 years of Hebrew grammar tradition? So if something is established 800 years ago, it's going to take a lot of time to convince people that it's wrong. Right? I mean, Gesenius was what, 1300? Yeah. So, yeah, no, he didn't do that. Was his name Banstra? He did the commentary on Ruth and Esther with Dr. Cook, and he did, Ruth and the biblical Aramaic text, Ezra and Daniel. And I think he's probably done some more now. He's got a book coming out that's already out. Ruth. Yeah, Ruth and Esther, I think. There's a book coming out that's already out in print, but Logos is making a digital form on linguistics in biblical Hebrew, which I'm really looking forward to reading. That's the thing with Cook and Homestead. They're not pure exegetes. They're Hebrew readers with linguistic background, and they use that linguistic background to form their interpretive opinions.
Yeah.
Right?
So where I heard about the verb subject object or subject, so the SVO order first was from the Biblingo content.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't even know that it was a thing, that it was debated, because I was taught by very classically, very much like old schoolers. And so, but because Kevin Grosso is a linguist, he, that's what his PhD is in linguistics.
Layman Seminary, have you read Advances in Biblical Hebrew? Is that Benjamin Noonan's book, Advances in Hebrew and Aramaic? I think that might be what you're referring to.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I have not read it, but I do have it. And I do know that Homestead reviewed that book and he thought it was awful. Homestead is very, very, both of them are very, very direct and blunt with their audience. Cook's excuse was always, he made a student cry in class. He said, I can't believe I made her cry, but I can't help it. I'm from New Jersey. Like, blaming his place of birth for his directness.
The Cook and
Ben-
Homestead both have books coming out from Baker, I think, in the spring, and they're like a week apart. And Homestead's is on syntax, Hebrew syntax, and Cook's is doing his on the Hebrew verb, and they're meant to be like supplemental grammars for Hebrew classes. So
Slapshot is from New Jersey. Slapshot, were you the one that asked me in the Biblical Hebrew Literature group? Yeah, so I wonder how it's going to differ from his dissertation. He'll probably make it more user-friendly, I imagine, right?
that's the impression that I'm getting, is that it's for like beginner to intermediate student to use.
His dissertation is absolutely massive.
Yeah. This is the trimmed down version of it, and it's still almost 300 pages, I think. Like significantly trimmed down.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the pictures off so we can see the entire screen. It is in Logos. Benjamin Noonan's book, is that what you're talking about? Or Cook's dissertation? Because Cook's dissertation is also available in Logos with, what is that series called? Cynthia Miller published in it. Tzavat published in it. Yeah. Okay, cool. I need to find that. It's probably, I still have all my textbooks in my garage. They're going to have to come out here soon. I think might be moving back to Kentucky because I would like to study with John Cook again. Let's see. Let's move forward and do a couple more verses. Clearly, we're not going to make it all the way through Genesis 3.
Right.
Yeah. So, this is interesting. This is interesting. I'll take 4 and 5 because 4 is like one line. Vayomer hanachash el ha'isha lo mot tamutun. You will not certainly die, or you will not surely die, or obviously you're not going to die. Ki yodei Elohim, ki bayom acholechem mimenu, v'nifkachu enechem, v'hitem kelohim yodei tovara. Now, you would think that this verb, there's a ki before it, ki yodei Elohim, but according to Cook and Homestead, grammatical words at the head of clauses with participles in them do not cause inversion.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is inverted, it's inverted for another reason. Right? Does that make sense? So what would be the reason? Why is the verb fronted? Because the writer is focusing on the knowing, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like that makes sense though too. Mm-hmm. Just in the context of what the snake is saying, serpent is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing God, knowing that God, knowing what God knows, that when you eat of it, when you eat from it, you will, your eyes will be opened. That makes sense.
They would also say that we're missing a relative pronoun here. So not exactly, and there's no way of proving that they're missing a relative pronoun here, but that's what they think. And if that's the case, I mean, it does happen a lot in Hebrew, right? We make relative clauses without any relative marker. If that is true, then this should be translated, who knows good and evil, referring back to God.
Why wouldn't it just be? Why wouldn't they just think it's appositional?
That's what I'm saying. There's no way of saying otherwise
Oh, okay,
definitively.
gotcha.
Yeah. Um, yeah, okay, so you can pick up with verse 6 if there aren't any questions.
Yeah, Layman Seminary has one. If you wanna,
Pull it up.
he just says his temptation is emphasized by throwing knowing forward? Question mark.
Yeah. Occasionally, you can make theological claims by the word order and the emphasis. I think the biggest contribution that Cook and Homestead have made in the discussion about word order is how it relates to topicalization and focus. Because I think that's going to be, I'll jump around a little bit here. Let me see.
Well, while we're doing that,
Yeah.
and if you want like an easy way to just digest some more about the word order debate, Biblingo did do a whole series. I think it's like a 6-part series on the Biblical Languages podcast where they talk about this, and
This is definitely Homestead's thing.
Yeah.
He was the one to put it forward, and I guess it's gaining more traction.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, it was a very minority view, and maybe still is, but it's been 12 years since I've been to seminary.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it could definitely just, they might even cite Homestead, but is at the time I hadn't heard of it directly from the source. I had heard about it through them. Is verb subject object still default? In the majority of people's view, I'd say that's pretty.
Is it still the standard view? Maybe, but it looks to me like if you say that Biblingo has it, it's definitely gaining ground.
Yeah, like I said, Kevin Gross was his PhD is in linguistics as well, and so he's
where did he go to school? Do you know?
It's in Israel somewhere.
Oh, well, he's going to have the modern Hebrew influences.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hebrew University of Jerusalem.
Yep, that's a good school. One of the best in the world for Hebrew.
Yep. His was in Hebrew language and literature. He worked on lexical semantics in biblical Hebrew. That's what he was doing.
Yeah. I'm just gonna read through this really quickly and look for interesting constructions.
Yeah, I did have a question about something.
Sure.
When I was reading through it. If I can get my notebook here.
You took notes too?
I mean, just like on words I didn't know when I read through it to prepare. It has nothing to do with syntax, though. Sorry.
Do I know where Robert Alter falls on this? I do.
Your screen went black, by the way.
Yeah, because I switched the window.
Okay.
If I minimize the window, it goes away for some reason.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you knew.
I did not. Is it back? Yeah, it's back.
Robert Alter. Yep.
Yeah, he has some distinct views on narrative forms. I think he would call the Vaictola preterite, which is basically a past tense form. I'm not sure about his views on word order, and I'm sure he does because he's like the father of biblical narrative. So that might be something worth looking into. Yeah. So what was your question?
It has nothing to do with syntax, but it's in verse 16, if you want to scroll down that way.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a weird morphology thing. And the teshukatek, fourth word from the end.
Ah, yes.
So teshucha is the absolute form, and so when you add the ending onto the onto it. So you have the hey becomes the vav, the second feminine singular suffix is added, but the comments remains a comment instead of reducing to a potok. And I was just curious as if you knew why, since the take is what's accented.
Mm-hmm. Well, how would you parse that?
As a noun, I think.
Teshukatech? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me see.
Because that's the desire word, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Yep. Va'el ishech teshukatech.
Yeah, to your husband, your desire will be is. If supply a verb, I guess.
Well, wait a minute. I'm not sure about that now.
Right, I know it's a pausal form, but the thing it's the what's accented is the following following syllable on the take.
Yeah,
yeah.
Teshukatech. I'm just looking at Hallowed really quick. Tushuka. Oh. On the gemination and vowel lengthening, see LOT 5. So they cite somebody to describe the literature, and I actually have it. It's the Historical Dictionary of the Hebrew Language, Literary and Oral Tradition of the Hebrew and Aramaic amongst the Sumerians 1 through 5, Jerusalem 1957 to 77. So he said that it's due to gemination, right?
Oh, okay.
So that meaning I think that means that originally
it would have been Shin Kof Kof.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was just like a random thing I caught, and I was just like,
that seems like a spurious explanation to me, though.
Yeah, I will look into it later, but I was just curious if you had any ideas why.
And look here, look what comes next. Look what comes next.
Yimshal. Bach.
Now here's an example of why it couldn't be topicalization or emphasis, right? Vahuyim Sholach. Who else is around? Who else could he possibly be referring to other than the man?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it also happens in Genesis 1 when it says Adam knew his wife. Adam yada el ishto. Oh, it's emphasizing Adam. Well, who else is in the story? Why would there be a reason to emphasize it's Adam? It's a pausal form. It could be a pausal form, but usually the pausal form would happen under the accent. And we have the accent on the following syllable. Well, yeah, usually that happens with an accented syllable. And here we see Teshukatech is the accent over here, right? If it were in pause, I think it would be, if it didn't have a pronoun on it, it would be Teshuka, making the accent retreat. That's that Nasoga Hor we talked about last time. Let me show you one more.
Mm-hmm. Slapshot just sent up a comment just so
Well, what does he say?
he just says thanks for doing the presentation. But he's probably gonna have to go. But he said he's enjoyed it and thanks.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I like Jonathan said, this is just kind of like last second. We were like, we can do something without Jason.
Right. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post Homestead's article on word order on the Facebook groups. So on if I have permission in the other two groups to do that, his article on word order, what he found was, yes, verb subject object is overwhelmingly the most common word order, but and I mentioned this, he did all of that and applied his rules and found like 99% of the time it was right. So it's definitely worth considering, even if you don't agree with it, which is allowed. What was I looking for? Here's one, verse 22. Va'ata bin yishlach yado. Well, that wouldn't be inversion, would it? Because there is no subject. But if there was a subject here, it would be, I can actually type, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, come on. Ben yishlachu yado. V'lakachta, I'm sorry, v'lakach gam me'etz chachayim v'achal v'chai le'olam. Here is your Arial mood. So since it's Arial mood, it would flip. But this is another modal imperfect. So we have, and this is another thing that signals Arial mood is the lest, right? Because that indicates a hypothetical condition. So lest he stretch out his hand and take also. So lest and take, he may not necessarily take it, but he may. So that makes it Arial or a modal imperfect, or a modal perfect rather, and you have the Vav conjunction, and you know it can't be a simple future, right? Lest he will take, because otherwise you wouldn't have the lest there, right? And what I wanted to, the theological tidbit I wanted to share was here, verse 8. Vayishma'u et kol Adonai Elohim mitchalech bagan l'ruach hayom vayitchabe ha'adam v'ishto. So you could say they heard, or you could even say when they heard. When they heard the voice of Adonai, the Lord Adonai Elohim walking in the garden, a mithalech, that's a participle, right? L'ruach hayom, literally like a wind of the day. I think the translations say like a cool breeze. They hid, well, actually, it's he hid, the man hid, and his wife. So the woman gets a parenthetical note here. Mipnei Adonai Elohim, from the presence of the Lord God, batoch etz hagan, in the midst of the tree of the garden. Vayikra Adonai Elohim el ha'adam vayomer lo ayeka. anything you could see that's interesting in this verse that might signal something theologically interesting?
Verse 9.
Yeah, what about it?
No, that was a question, but now that you've confirmed it, I'm going to find out.
Yes.
um,
And I'm not talking about grammar necessarily. Well, I am talking about grammar a little bit.
yeah. Well, the
What's
layman's
this?
yeah, ayecha. It's the ayah verb and the second masculine
Well,
singular.
the IEA in interrogative.
Interrogative. I said verb, didn't I?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I meant to say word. The
How many person, number, or gender is there?
second masculine singular.
Second masculine singular. Isn't that interesting? The Lord God called to the man, right? And said, "Where are you?" Not to the man and his wife, "Where are the two of you?" What does this tell us? The man is responsible. God isn't looking for the woman. God is looking for the man. Vayomer et kolcha shamati bagan va'ira ki eromanohi va'echave. He said, et kolcha shamati bagan. What's interesting about this one? The object is fronted, isn't it?
Yeah, that was something I was going to bring up later. That's
Well, go ahead and bring it up.
yeah, I'll do it now. First thing, Mike Tisdale commented and pointed out that the Yit Have up in verse 8 is reflexive. The man
Yes,
hits himself and his wife.
but yitchabe with an olive, right?
What did I? I don't know.
I love to have fellow auditory learners that sometimes make grammatical things. I wouldn't even call them errors, just based on hearing because they sound the same. I do that all the freaking time.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it.
I just said something because I don't get to correct Mike on stuff very often. Actually, hardly ever.
Yeah.
He said yes. I spelled it wrong.
The subject being the object being fronted. That was the thing too. Is like we talk about verb subject object or subject verb object. It's always the object is at the end in the standard. So that's agreed upon by both parties, by both camps. So if you have something, if you have the object fronted, there is a reason for that, and everybody is very much on board with that. And so that's one of those things that it should draw your attention to immediately.
Your voice I heard in the garden. And I was afraid. So I hid myself. V'echave. Yeah, that's a nifal, right? You've got the olive prefix for the imperfect. A lengthened kamatz, right? Because the olive can't take a dagesh. So that is a nifal past narrative or vayik tol form. And then since nifal and hitpael can both have a reflexive sense. Or also we talked about mitalech, the participle, can be an iterative use. So they were walking to and fro, the translations say, or I say they were pacing, walking back and forth in the garden, right?
Yeah.
So, well, we're 6 minutes over. So, does anybody have any questions before we call it a day? I really enjoy it. Word order and syntax is my favorite thing in biblical Hebrew, and I hope I get to do more of it with John Cook. That would be a lot of fun. If Asbury lets you do a language focus, they may not. They may want to do an interpretation focus, but
it's yeah, this was fun. Like I said, I by no means am I a replacement for Jason, but I'm glad that I got to
Nobody's a
part of
replacement for Jason.
it. And so, but I'm glad I got to be a part of it just to talk about it. And and like I said, my understanding of a lot of this is really loose.
Oh, you seem to do pretty well for somebody with a loose understanding.
Yeah, but I mean, it's none of it came through formal instruction. It's just stuff that I've picked up along the way. None of this stuff in particular. Of course, I had formal instruction, but
we should have Mike Tisdale as a guest host sometime. That'd be fun. Note the conversation is almost entirely plural. So, what is the theological implication of it switching to the singular? We don't. Yeah, show faces. Can you not? Oh, sorry. What is the theological implication of it switching to the singular, do you think? Open question, except for Mike. And Mike actually may not agree with this theological implication. I'm not sure. I don't know his. I know Mike's an evangelical, but I'm not sure about this issue that I'm thinking about what he thinks of it. But it's a very Methodist answer, which would be me. If it's switching from the plural to the singular, the focus, man as head is accountable. Not necessarily the man as head, because I'm sort of an egalitarian, but
there's a distinction between them, though.
Yes.
Now that's
right.
That's the thing.
And remember, Eve never got the direction.
The prohibition.
From God,
yeah, she never directly received the prohibition.
Right. So what's it saying? Like, what's my favorite thing to say when I was sitting in a seminar once by somebody and they were doing like an anti, encouraging the girls to dress modestly so they don't cause the men to stumble, right? And so the lady said, "Remember, guys, whose fault was it that Adam sinned in the garden?" It was an open question. And I said, Adam's. She was looking for Eve, but Eve heard it all secondhand. And the other thing I find interesting in this passage is, did the serpent really lie? Is there anything in this passage that he said that wasn't true? You will be like God, knowing good and evil. You will not surely die. You will not surely die is debated, but I think that
well, later at the end of the chapter, he says, let's kick them out so that they don't eat from the tree of life and become,
I would
it
not
seems
say.
It seems to be.
This is my theological leaning. The Jews that I go to school with, the Reformed Jews, basically call God a liar, because it does say, in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. That seems quite clear to me that it's talking about an instantaneous death, or at least death that would happen shortly after eating. However, the Wesleyan in me says, well, something that's missed in the Genesis account is God is gracious. Not only did he spare their lives, if you take this view that he's gracious, he clothed them with skins. God's grace is present from the very beginning. And I think that is, I think he didn't kill them dead because he was showing grace. And he continued to show that grace after he provided clothes. Right?
Do you see Mike's comment?
I do see Mike's comment. Vayomer el haisha af ki amar Elohim lo tochlu mikol eitz hagan. Did God really say? Oh yes, he did lie there, didn't he? It wasn't an all-out lie, but it was very deceptive. And that fits with the theme of the serpent being the most crafty of any of the animals, right? But we can talk all day about subverting the Babylonian text, where in the ancient text, the serpent is seen as the good guy and an instrument of healing, and the Israelites literature says no, no. And that's one of the things that I think is cool about how, in my opinion, it's not so much a historical count as much as the Israelite literature, or as my professor would say, the big book of Israelite legends, focuses on how Israel is different from his neighbors, not how it's the same, right?
Yeah, it's so funny to me too when because I'm reading through the Proverbs right now, and the frequency of the arum adjective, craft, being crafty, being wise, being, it's just like, okay, it's like it's so interesting that that is a virtue, is in the Proverbs, and it's I have that issue with the snake. It's like the craftiness is like a neutral thing that can be used for good or evil, and so it's just one of those things where it's like, I was reading this in alongside the Proverbs. It was like, it's not a bad thing, but it's a tool.
Oh, no. We said that we could spend some time to ask questions and we can talk theology. It's a good thing Jason isn't here. It's a good thing he's not here for this part.
Say
it's all nonsense.
None of those things interest me.
Yeah. He doesn't care about theology. He only cares about language. He said, "I don't understand why you study what you study." I was like, "Well, I mean, it's not for everyone." Was the tree to be consumed once for immortality? I think, and this is my theory, and I mentioned it last week, so I don't know who was here and who wasn't. But the Hebrew Genesis starts with a merism, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's not saying he created just the heavens or just the earth. That's a merism, a way of saying that he created everything. So I always said growing up, why was it so bad that they ate the fruit? Why is it so bad that you know the difference between good and evil? And I thought, oh, well, what if we took, and I don't know of anybody else that's written about this. I imagine I'm not the first one to say this, but if we took Tovara, knowing Tovara, if we took those as substantives rather than describing adjectives, good things and evil things, just like the heavens and the earth, right? If we take those as substantives and take it as a merism, what's that really saying? Knowing everything there is to know. And that, in my mind, is a much greater temptation to eat of the fruit. I was like, yeah, omniscience is a good reason. I would, and if you're omniscient, are you like God? Seems like a good explanation to me. I'm raising my hands in a shrug. You can't see, but yeah, results are the consequences. Yep. So, any other questions before we quit? Because I have an appointment at 7:00 that I need to get ready for. But this has been a lot of fun, and I'm sure Jason will be viewing this.
Yeah, whenever he gets some free time.
So, Jason, I'm sorry I made fun of you for your lack of interest in theology. I hope you don't hold it against me. I think the issue is yada generally indicates an experiential knowledge. Yeah, maybe. I think you're right most of the time. I'd have to look that up to see if, but then again, good things and evil things, it still is abstract, right? You're still knowing thoughts. It's still talking about thoughts and not specifically objects because they're not material. But I'd have to look that up. Anyway, I like that explanation. So I'm going to keep it until somebody disproves it. How about that?
Just got to look hard enough. I'm sure it's...
Yep. Well, there's this was a lot of fun, and I have much more time than doing Hebrew once a week, so I might do more special streams. One of the things I'd like to do is maybe have interviews, like some of my professors who are Hebrew scholars, and see about the work they're doing in the field.
Mhm.
That would be interesting. Um, I'm sure John Cook would be willing to come and share his story about how he got started if he has time. He's also very busy, so I'm not sure. Yeah. So thanks, folks. I'm going to stop the stream now, but I'll hang around for a few more minutes if anybody has any more questions. Okay. So we're going to stop the stream now. Thanks for coming, but you'll still see. I think. Uh, no, you won't see us, but you'll still be able to chat. So um, we will see you next Monday. Think of it this way: you want to be very careful about saying that you know someone. Oh, yes, indeed. That always makes me think of Sister Act every single time. Let me tell you, I knew this woman in the biblical sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, folks. Uh, I would say Shabbat Shalom, but that has already happened. Have a good week.
Am
And
Yisrael High.
Am Yisrael Chai. We will be back next week for our continuation of Joshua. So thanks for those who stopped by, and we will see you soon. Peace.
Hi, y'all.